Now we're going to start making our chocolate ganache. So we're making 3 of them, but we're going to start off first with the strawberry lemon truffle ganache. Melt your chocolate out first. So quick and easy, we're going to use the microwave version. And the microwave version I appreciate much more than the double boiler version. I'm not a big fan of using double boilers. Double boilers to melt your chocolate create a pocket of steam underneath the bowl, and what you don't want to do is have water and chocolate mix. Water will instantly seize up your chocolate and make it grainy and tough. So first of all, we're going to take this chocolate and we're going to start getting it melted. The way we do that is we're going to put it in the microwave at 50% power for 1 minute, take it out, stir it, put it back in for 50% power at 1 minute, and continue to do so until 90% of the chocolate has melted into a liquid. Once that's done, we're going to put the chocolate aside and allow it to finish melting on its own. All right. And see if I can figure out how to use this microwave. All right. And we're good. Okay. So while the chocolate's melting, you can definitely go ahead and move on with the rest of the recipe. So the first thing we're going to do is start getting this butter whipped up. So I have what comes out to be 1 stick of unsalted, which is very important, butter. You don't need to have salt in your truffle unless you want it, and then you can add it yourself. So I'm just going to put the butter in here. There we go. And whip it up. Using room temperature butter is always best. Well, there we go. I guess it took a moment for her to warm up. So. There we go. It only takes about a minute to whip the butter up, and then it's good to go. So, but we do need to continue to work on the chocolate. So it's been a minute. As you can see, it doesn't look any different, and it's exactly the way it should be. Melting chocolate is a slow process. With chocolate, the cocoa butter in chocolate has a very low burning temperature. So being very gentle with chocolate when you melt it is really important because you don't want to have the cocoa butter burn before the rest of the ingredients that make up chocolate melt. So we're going to put this back in the microwave for another minute, 50% power, and we're going to pull it out, stir it, and repeat. So these steps right here of pre-melting the chocolate to make the truffle are also the same steps that you're going to use at the end of the recipe when you want to melt your chocolate for dipping in. So at the end of the recipe, we're going to take a pound of white chocolate and we're going to go through the same process that we're doing right now with the chocolate that we're using to make this ganache by just melting it into a liquid pool. And then we're going to use that chocolate for dipping in. So this is a really important step of the recipe because not only is it the beginning of the recipe to allow you to make your truffle, but it's also the last step of the recipe that allows you to create a tempered chocolate that you can dip your final product in. So while that's melting down, we're going to go ahead and just measure out the ingredients that we need. So we need half a cup of heavy cream. There we go. And the heavy cream we're just going to heat up, and I'm going to use the microwave for this as well, until it's nice and hot. So we have a few seconds left on the chocolate. I'm going to pull it out and give it another whirl. All right. And as you can see, when I stir this now, there's going to be a little bit of liquid chocolate forming within the bowl. And you want to stir this in between each of the heatings, just so that liquid chocolate starts coating the rest of the solid chocolate, because it's going to help in the melting process. All right, so we've measured our heavy cream. We're going to be using a half a cup of that. And next we're going to measure out our limoncello. So we're going to be using limoncello, dried lemon peel, and freeze-dried strawberries in this recipe. We're going to be using a half a cup of limoncello. It's a great way to get some flavor into, lemon flavor into your truffle. Right. And then we're back to giving this another stir. All right. And with 2 pounds of chocolate, it's probably going to take about 4 1-minute intervals for this to melt down to the point where it'll be in a liquid state. So, as you can see, it's getting there, slowly but surely. But again, patience is very key with chocolate so you don't burn it. All right, so in the microwave one more time. Okay. And then the other 2 ingredients that we have for this recipe is dried lemon peel and freeze-dried strawberries. So I love working with dried fruits when I'm making my truffles because you can rehydrate them into the recipe without adding any water content. And as we all know, the reason that foods spoil is because of water content. So being able to control that in your recipe means you're going to have a nice longevity out of this final product, and you also are going to be able to control the consistency and the texture of the product. Water and chocolate do not mix. Water added to chocolate will make the chocolate grainy. And when working with truffles, I mean, one of the wonderful things about a truffle is its luxurious texture. So that's a really key part of the overall experience. There we go. All right. So chocolate's counting down. After the chocolate, I pull it out. We're going to stir it one more time. I'm going to put the chocolate aside to allow it to continue to melt down. And you'll see that there'll be a few chunks of white chocolate still left in there that'll melt out on its own. There we go. So as you can see, last 1-minute interval was really the key one to really break this chocolate down into more of a liquid state. And also, there's a few pieces of white chocolate, as you can see, little chunks of it that are left in the bowl, and that's exactly what you want. So we're just going to give this a stir and set it aside. Great. Making sure that there's a few chunks of chocolate left in your bowl also ensures that you haven't overheated your chocolate. You don't want to heat your chocolate up so hot that you break down the composition of the product and give it a grainy texture. All right, so the white chocolate's going to sit over here, and what we're going to go ahead and do is work on the other 2 parts of this recipe, which is heating our cream and heating our limoncello. So both of these products just simply need to be heated until they are hot. They don't need to be boiling or scalding for the cream, just nice and hot when they begin to steam. So I'm going to put these in the microwave together for 2 minutes, pull it out, check it. You know, everyone's microwave is a little bit different, so and you can also watch it through the glass just to make sure that it's not going to boil over and make a mess. Nobody really wants a good mess like that. So that's going to heat up, and when it does, we're going to pull it out, and we're going to add our lemon zest and our dried strawberries. The limoncello is what we're going to use to rehydrate the strawberries. So not only will the strawberries regain some of that wonderful fresh texture of a fresh strawberry, but it's going to do so by having one of the key flavor ingredients added to it, and that is through the limoncello. So the strawberry is going to have a wonderful flavor and a really beautiful texture without adding a high water content to the overall recipe. So this is counting down 15 seconds. I'm watching it right now. And it doesn't look like either of these are at a state where it wants to boil. So we're probably I'm gonna put it back on for 1 more minute, and they're almost there. I'm actually just gonna do it for 30 seconds. So we're gonna take the products when they're out, add this in, and then we're gonna pull the rest of this recipe together. Chocolate truffles actually don't take a lot of time. Just knowing how to combine the ingredients in the right step, how to make sure that you don't overprocess your chocolate to give it a bad texture is really important. So, our chocolate is melting out beautifully. It's perfect. And even if you feel the bowl, it's not so hot that you can't touch it. It's warm. So, all right. So here's our limoncello and our cream. So that was perfect. Both of them are nice and hot. So to this recipe, we're doing a teaspoon of lemon zest. Great. And we're going to do a 1/2 cup of freeze-dried strawberries. This is a 1/2 cup, so we're going to pack this in as much as you can with dried strawberries. There's a lot of air in there, and I just want to make sure that this recipe takes advantage of all the strawberry flavor. Here. All right. So just give this a quick stir. Beautiful. And you can instantly start to see the strawberries plump back up with the limoncello. So, the other thing that's nice when you're working with alcohol in a truffle recipe is that you don't have to use quite as much butter or cream or fat in the recipe because, as you've all probably learned, if you put alcohol into your freezer, it won't freeze because of the alcohol content. So using alcohol in food, especially a food that has a solid base to it like a truffle, is going to keep it softer. So you can cut back a little bit on your fat content when you're working with alcohol. So again, what's really important is the order in which you add these ingredients to your chocolate. So you always want to add your fat first to your chocolate. Adding the alcohol first can potentially allow it to seize up and have a grainy texture. So then we're going to pour that in, and then we're going to stir everything together. Stirring carefully is a good tip, just so it doesn't splash out. There's a lot of liquid in here right now, and it's going to take a couple minutes just stirring everything together. But as you can see, it's going to turn a really pretty pink color. Right. Okay. So as you start to stir this together, it's going to stiffen up a little bit. And that's because the alcohol is trying to seize up the chocolate, but what's going to win out is the cream. And so continue to stir them together, and then as you do, you'll see that the product incorporates itself into a really pretty smooth ganache. I like to work with both heavy cream and butter in my ganache recipes, only because I tend to make a ganache that is a little bit more on the firmer side, and using butter is a nice way to add a solid fat, a solid dairy fat in the form of a butter versus heavy cream, and allowing that firmer texture to be created. So we have, at this point we do have ganache, but since I want to add some butter to this, we're just going to add this into the mixer. All right. And although there's plenty in here to lick, I'm going to add it into the bowl here. All right. So, quite simply, we're going to, there we go, blend them together. And I like to do it at a little bit of a higher speed so I can whip it. Adds a little air into it. Adding a little air into your ganache will also create a smoother, prettier, lighter texture in the end product. So this is going to go around for 30 seconds or so, and then you want to stop it. There we go. And just scrape down the sides and the bottom of the bowl. Make sure all the butter is being incorporated into your final product. All right. So, another 45 seconds. And the warm mixture is slowly melting the whipped butter in there and bringing it into the ganache. That butter adds another element of great texture to the product. And it's actually really pretty. Okay, and that is that. So, let me just remove and just going to scrape off the ganache here on the beater. Beautiful. And I always like to just do a quick check, make sure all the butter melted in to this final product so we don't have any ribbons of butter or chunks of butter, although there's nothing wrong with that. This looks perfect. So, I'm simply going to add this final ganache. Great. You see how pretty that pours in there. It has a beautiful glossy sheen to the product, so you know you've done a great job making it. All right. All right. I'm going to get every last bit in here because a 1-inch truffle isn't very big. You'd be surprised how many little truffles you can get out, just making sure you wipe that bowl clean. All right, so this is our final strawberry lemon white chocolate ganache mixture. And then at this point, you're going to stick it in your refrigerator for 4 hours until it chills down, and then we're going to take it back out and, using our ice cream scoop, roll it into 1-inch round balls for dipping. And that was that.